And welcome to the end of the week here on the Morning Pitt, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. I'm Chris Peak from Panther-Lair.com. I point to the bottom of the screen because that's where the site logo is, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. It's a website that still works. And who knows, by the time you watch this video, if Twitter still will be working. Boy, I couldn't tell what people were talking about more on Twitter last night. The death of Twitter or the Pitt basketball loss. We're going to talk more about the latter than we do about the former. But it was certainly interesting to see. You can follow us on Twitter at Panther-Lair. I don't know if people still give out their social media handles or not. But as long as you can follow people on Twitter, you can follow us at Panther-Lair. It's just like that word. I guess it starts over on that side. Panther-Lair, no hyphen on Twitter. But go to the website, though. Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. And in the more immediate pressing future, like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Make sure you will never miss any of our exclusive Pitt video content. And all those times when we do live streams, you never want to miss any of those. If you subscribe to our YouTube channel and turn on notifications, you can get an alert sent to your phone every time we go live, so you never miss any of it. You know, we went live on Wednesday night after the Pitt basketball game against Michigan, that loss. We went live pretty much on schedule at 8:30. We'll be live tomorrow night after the Pitt-Duke football game, but I'm not sure exactly what time yet. It might be a later live stream, a couple things to do after the game, so we might not start until 9 or 10. I'll tweet out or post on the message boards an exact starting time, but you want to make sure you don't miss it, so subscribe to our YouTube channel and turn on the notifications, and then you'll be sure to catch everything that we do here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. We appreciate everybody who's already subscribed. We appreciate everybody who likes this video and subscribes going forward. And obviously, I mean, this is the Friday edition of the Morning Pit. Our big thing is we preview the weekend football game. We look around the Coastal Division. This is what we've done all season long, and we'll continue to do that today. But this happens to be a unique Friday in that Pitt played a basketball game last night. Panthers took on VCU in the third place game of the Legends Classic in Brooklyn, New York, and it was a lot. It was better than the Michigan game, at least. You know, they didn't lose by 31. They lost by 4, 71-67. John Hughley did not play in that game after making his season debut against Michigan the day before. And this was a game that was, it was close. Pitt had a lead midway through, late in the second half. Their last lead was with 2 minutes to go. They were up 60-59, and so they were still in position to potentially win this game. They just couldn't make a couple key baskets down the stretch. And this was a game that, set basketball back 100 years in the first half. 30-24 was the halftime score. VCU was up. And then in the second half, you got 84 combined points scored between these two teams. Pitt actually outscored VCU in the second half 43-41 and played pretty well. All things considered. Shot 52% from the floor, hit 4 3-pointers, which, 4 of 13 is not a great three-point shooting percentage, but is better than the 1 of 9 that they shot in the first half. And perhaps most importantly, Blake Hinson was able to come alive. He scores 14 points in the second half, 4 of 7 from the floor, 3 of 5 from 3. Finishes the game with 18 points. That tied the VCU guy Johns with, for the game high in scoring. Hinson went 6 of 10 from the floor, 3 of 5 from 3, made 3 free throws, grabbed 3 rebounds. He also had 4 fouls. This team, I mean, first of all, they're obviously operating at a loss without John Hughley. Every game you play without John Hughley, you are going to, you're going to be worse for it. The lineup is naturally better with Hughley in there. Now, I'm on board with everybody else. I thought it was really fun to see the Diaz-Graham twins get as much playing time as they did. Federico had 4 fouls, so he missed a significant amount of time, only played 9 minutes in this game. So you get Guillermo out there for 30 minutes, and he ultimately fouled out after scoring 7 points, made 3 baskets. Jorge finally made his first 3-pointer of the game. He played 20 minutes, finished with 10 points. Guillermo 7 points and 7 rebounds. You take that kind of stat line out of Guillermo Diaz-Graham. Admittedly, he did it in 30 minutes, so that took a little bit longer than you would have liked, but you'd like a little bit better production out of that out of that kind of time spent on the court. But it was fun to watch those guys. They provided some energy. Once Hinson got going in the second half, I thought that was fun to watch as well. Greg Elliott struggled in this game. 2 of 9 from the floor, turned it over 4 times. Only scored 5 points, missed all 4 of his 3-point attempts. They need Greg Elliott to be good. They need him to take a big step forward here if they're really going to do anything. They need that shooting. Blake Hinson is holding up his end of the bargain. Greg Elliott is not. They also need Nelly Cummings to settle down and play well. He can't have another 5 turnovers like he did here, another 4 fouls, got himself in foul trouble, turned the ball over. He dribbles and acts like he's a threat to drive, but that's not really what he's shown himself to be for the most part. He needs to be a facilitating point guard, but he needs his teammates to finish for him as well. Nelly Cummings had 0 assists in the game last night. That's just not, it's obviously not going to cut it. Not very good when your point guard goes, 0 assists and 5 turnovers. A lot of times it looked like Jamarius Burton was bringing the ball up the court anyway. Burton finished with 4 assists and 4 turnovers. So still having turnover issues with 18. They had 27 fouls. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys had at least 4 fouls, including Guillermo Diaz-Graham, who fouled out. Look, this Pitt basketball team is what they are right now. They're not a team that should be getting blown out by 30 every night, but they are a team that's going to have to play. I don't even know. I don't even know what you could say about this game. They shot 42% from the floor. They needed to make a few more threes. They went 5 of 22. That was a problem. They allowed VCU to shoot 40.8%. You got to cut down on that. You need to do a better job, defensively. But they had advantages here. They out-rebounded VCU. They outshot VCU from the floor. It just, turnovers. They had 3 more turnovers. VCU got 23 points off of Pitt's turnovers as opposed to Pitt getting 16 off of VCU's turnovers. They need John Hughley back. They need Nelly Cummings to settle down, and they need Greg Elliott to make shots. Now, all those things are plausible, and all those things are viable. All those things can be done. John Hughley will come back. Nelly Cummings can settle down. Greg Elliott can make shots. But those things need to happen sooner rather than later. The schedule's going to lighten up a little bit. But they obviously are not in a position where they can actually overlook anyone. They need to play as hard as they can on both ends of the court, no matter who they're playing, because they're not good enough to take it easy and get past the team. It's disappointing because it looked like they had a real shot. It's disappointing because it looked like they were going to get a win. Instead, now they're 1-3. They opened the season against Tennessee Martin with 1 win, and they've lost 3 games in a row since then. And that's it's disappointing. They should be better than that. They should be playing better than that. I think this roster should be playing better than that. I think Jeff Capel in year 5 should be better than that. But they're not right now. They're not. And it's sort of as simple as that. All right, let's flip over to football and get into this weekend, looking at this matchup with Duke. Pitt hosting the Blue Devils at Acrisure Stadium for a noon kickoff. Duke is 7-3, 4-2 in the ACC. Pitt is 6-4, 3-3 in the ACC. And it really comes down to the quarterback, really on both sides of the ball. It's Riley Leonard and it's Keaton Slovis. Riley Leonard is such a big part of what happens for Duke and what goes well for Duke and what Duke does. He's Duke's leading rusher this season. He's rushed for I had the number 625 yards and 10 touchdowns. He's thrown 13 touchdown passes and 5 interceptions. He's got 2,000 yards passing. I mean, he's really what makes Duke go, and he's the biggest reason they've had the success that they've had. Duke is, currently 5th in the ACC in scoring offense. They're 2nd in the ACC in rushing offense. They're quite a bit lower. They're down number 11 in passing offense. But part of that is because they've really become a run-heavy team. They've run for averaging 203 rushing yards per game this season. They've topped 200 rushing yards 6 times out of their 10 games, including 3 out of the last 4. They put 297 on North Carolina on the ground. They rushed for 200 against Miami, rushed for 232 against Boston College. Only had a $165 against Virginia Tech last weekend. But overall, I mean, this is a team that's going to try and win with the run, and largely with Riley Leonard doing the work, but they're going to attack on the ground. And I think that plays into Pitt's strengths. I mean, we know how good Pitt's defense has been stopping the run. They've had their struggles earlier this season. They had points where they weren't very good at stopping the run. But I think for the most part, certainly over the second half of the season, they've been pretty stout against the run, and they've done a pretty good job against running quarterbacks. A few guys have made plays. Jeff Sims made some plays. Drake May made some plays. Malik Cunningham made a play as a receiver. Brennan Armstrong didn't make any plays. They've largely done a good job against running quarterbacks. I mean, there have been a handful of teams they've played where the quarterback has been the team's leading rusher, and they've more or less kept them bottled up. And again, there were a few plays here and there. Jeff Sims, Malik Cunningham, Drake May. These guys made one or two plays here or there, but for the most part, they weren't able to get going on the ground. They did damage in other ways, and those teams did damage in other ways. But Pitt did a pretty good job against the quarterback. Riley Leonard's going to be a real challenge because he's another guy who's going to, Pat Narduzzi described it yesterday as they're going to take 31 seconds off the play clock. They're going to make a lot of checks and changes at the line of scrimmage based on what they think you're doing. And you got to be prepared for a lot of different things to happen. And you got to be sure you contain the quarterback. I think a lot of that pressure falls on the defensive ends and falls on the outside linebackers. The corners obviously can't get caught up on blocks downfield. But it is a total team effort. And, this team is not completely inept at throwing the ball. They have a 300-yard game against Kansas. They threw for 324. They threw for 328 against Temple this season. But otherwise, they've been under 300 yards and really under 200 yards. 4 of their games. Yeah, 4 of their games this season, Duke has been held under 200 yards passing. So they haven't really relied on the pass all that much. They've been efficient when they do it, but they haven't really used it all that much. It hasn't been the primary weapon. The primary weapon's been on the ground, kind of like Pitt. So can Pitt have success? Pitt obviously has to stop Duke's rushing attack, but what can Pitt do offensively? When you look at Duke's defense, they rank fairly high in the ACC. They're number 4 rushing defense, 2 spots below Pitt. Pitt's second in the conference. Duke is 4th. Scoring defense, Duke right above Pitt, 21.5 points per game. Total defense, they're actually down a little bit. And what's funny is there might be some opportunities here. Duke is 13th in the ACC in passing defense. They're allowing 261 passing yards per game. Now, some of that, a big part of that, is due to the North Carolina game. Drake May, 380 passing yards in that game. Northwestern threw for 435 against Duke. Kansas threw for 324. Boston College had 330 passing yards. They've gotten beat through the air. Drake May doing a large amount of that damage, but he hasn't been the only one. And these teams that threw for a lot of yards also threw for a lot of touchdowns. Northwestern, 435 yards and 2 passing touchdowns. Kansas, 324 yards, 4 passing touchdowns. Carolina, 380 and 3. Boston College, 330 passing yards and 4 passing touchdowns. Miami, with their quarterback situation, 279 passing yards and 3 passing touchdowns. So there should be opportunities here for this Pitt passing attack, which, as I've talked about, I think is getting better and better. There should be opportunities here for Keaton Slovis and Jared Wayne and Kanate Mumfield and Bub Means to make some plays. And Gavin Bartholomew, for the love of God, can you please get Alberto involved in this thing? And there's only 2 games left in the regular season. You might as well start throwing it to him now. Against the run, like I said, Duke is top 4 in the ACC, stopping the run, but they've gotten beat a few times here. North Carolina A&T ran for 217. Kansas ran for 213. Georgia Tech ran for 180. Their last 4 games, they've been pretty good against the run. Carolina only had a 156. Miami had 48 rushing yards. Boston College had 75. And Virginia Tech had 104. Part of that, though, is sort of a lack of commitment to the run. Virginia Tech ran the ball 26 times. Boston College ran it 28 times. Miami ran it 31 times. Pitt's going to be closer to 40 rushing attempts in this game tomorrow. I mean, they're going to run the ball a lot because that's what they do. Probably more than 40. And when teams have rushed more than 40 times, there's only been one. North Carolina A&T rushed 41 times and they went over 200 yards. Kansas rushed 39 times and went over 200 yards. Georgia Tech rushed 37 times and went for $180. So Duke's defense has got some good numbers against the run. They've gotten beat by the pass. And when teams have really been committed to running the ball and have been, effective running teams, they've had success as well. So I think, this game, the defense is going to have its hands full. They're going to have the real challenge of slowing down Riley Leonard and containing that rushing attack. But Pitt's offense should be able to take another step forward. And I think actually score some points and have some success against this Duke defense. I think they should be able to run the ball because as much as anyone on Duke's schedule, they're committed to running the ball and they're good at it. And I think they should be able to find some success throwing as well. This could be a game where Pitt's offense, where we really do come out of it and say, I don't need a lot of caveats or disclaimers. They took a step forward. They looked pretty good. Maybe not to the point where we say they're a good offense, but we might say they looked pretty good on Saturday. And, I talked, if you watched the Morning Pitt video yesterday, I talked about Pitt's offense improving, how I think they have from the Carolina game to the Syracuse game to the Virginia game. I think they have taken steps forward. I think this will be another one. I think this will be another one. Now, you don't want to be in a situation where Duke is able to, move the ball well, and so you get yourself into sort of a shootout, or as much of a shootout as there could be between two run-heavy teams. It might be a 28-24 shootout, where each team has about 6 possessions and the game's over in 2.5 hours, which would be fantastic. But I think you're going to need to stay ahead of this team. You're going to need to find some success offensively. You don't want to have to rely on your defense, although that defense is playing really, really well right now. And this should be a matchup that favors them, just being a team that leans heavily on the run. So I like Pitt's chances here. I don't know what the score is going to be. I know Pitt's favored by a decent amount, kind of a surprising amount. Given when you look at how Duke season has gone and how Pitt season has gone, and maybe a lot of that is based on preseason expectations. Expectations for Duke were low, and so when you go 7-3, it looks like you're really overachieving. Conversely, expectations for Pitt were quite high, and when you go 6-4, it looks like you're pretty severely underachieving. But I think Pitt has a real good chance of coming out of this one with a win. I expect them to come out of this one with a win. I think they'll get it. All right, let's look around the Coastal here real quick, see what else is going on in the division. Of course, everyone's playing. Got a couple non-conference games, got a couple, cross-division games or Atlantic Division games, and then you got two games in the Coastal. Of course, Pitt-Duke is one of them. The other one is Georgia Tech at North Carolina. Carolina favored by 21. They've already clinched the Coastal Division. They're ranked number 13. Drake May is, I think, you are now in a position, you've clinched your spot in Charlotte. And if you're North Carolina, you are on the Drake May promotional tour now. You don't want to get him hurt, but you want to put up as big of numbers as possible. And right now, his numbers are all right there at the top in college football. He's tied for first in touchdowns responsible for. He's second in passing yards per game. He's second in passing touchdowns. I mean, he's doing all these things. I mean, he's put himself at the top of the sport. He needs to keep himself there, and he's going to need some big-time performances. And, over, this week, next week, and then in the ACC championship game. 3 touchdowns, though. That's crazy. Virginia Tech is at Liberty. Liberty's favored by 10 in that game. Virginia Tech is 2-8. I don't know if they're checked out or not, but they're in a bad way, for sure, as they have been all season. And that's going to be a rebuilding project, for sure, in Blacksburg. Miami is at Clemson, 3:30 game. Clemson's favored by 19. I really wonder what the last time Miami was a 19-point underdog. Could probably research that and find it out. I'm sure somebody already has. But a 3-score underdog for Miami, that's crazy. I know it's on the road. I know it's against a top 10 team. But you're still Miami. You would think that you wouldn't sink that low. And what that's all setting up is a situation where Pitt goes to Miami in the regular season finale and Miami is playing for bowl eligibility. I think Miami will, there's always a chance with Miami being Miami of Miami just sort of giving up. But if there's something actually to play for, like a bowl eligibility, I don't know. Maybe they'll rally. And then, like I said, the Pitt-Duke game, and then the other game in the Coastal was Coastal Carolina at Virginia. And that game, in the wake of the shooting in Charlottesville on Virginia's campus, which took the lives of 3 Virginia football players, that game's been canceled. Understandably so. I don't think there's a person in the sport of college football, I don't think there's a person with any kind of compassion whatsoever in this country who would raise any issue whatsoever with canceling that game. As I said on Monday, or it's Tuesday, maybe I talked about it. Just an incredibly tragic situation, and I don't think you would get any kind of pushback if Virginia decided not to play their finale. Who do they play in the regular season finale? Against Virginia Tech. Maybe that's the game you come back to, and you do it as a celebration of those 3 guys, and you play the in-state rival or the in-Commonwealth rival, as it were. But I don't think anybody would have any objection whatsoever if Virginia hangs it up. I mean, they're 3-7. Their bowl eligibility is not a question. I don't think anybody would have any objection at all. Certainly no objection to canceling this game against Coastal Carolina. And if the 2 bottom teams in the Coastal Division don't want to play that regular season finale, I think that would be, like I say, you'll get no argument from me. And also, if they decide to play it, I'll rally around that as much as I possibly can. I mean, that would be, it could potentially be a real inspirational event. But whatever they decide to do, I think they deserve everyone's 100% support behind it for sure. So should be an interesting week in the Coastal. Just with a couple of those teams being such big underdogs, you almost wonder if maybe there'll be an upset. Probably not, though, given that we're talking about Miami and Georgia Tech. But it'll be interesting to see. It's Virginia Tech, too. We can't cancel out the Virginia Tech being like a 10-point dog to Liberty. So we'll see what can come out of all of this. Obviously, our attention will all be on Acrisure Stadium at noon tomorrow. We'll see if Pitt can get to win number 7. They're really... That's what you're salvaging now, is trying to push that win total as high as you can. You've already passed the point of, you've missed on all of your goals. You're past the point of calling this season a disappointment. It is. And it's going to be. But it's a lot more palatable if you can go from 11 wins to 9 wins, which is still on the table, than going from 11 wins to 8 or to 7 or, God forbid, 6. Let's not even consider that possibility. So go out and beat Duke and keep the hope of 9 wins alive for another week heading into the regular season. I'll see you guys at Acrisure Stadium. Remember, we'll be live for the postgame show after the game tomorrow night. Not really sure what time we're going to start. Maybe around 10 or so. I'll let you know, but you can always subscribe to our YouTube channel, turn on notifications, and get alerts sent to your phone so you'll never miss any of our live streams or any of our Morning Pitt videos or anything we release at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. So thanks for watching this video today. Thanks for watching the videos all week. I appreciate it. Hope you had a great week, and hope you have a great weekend. Hope you enjoy the Pitt game tomorrow. It'll be cold, so bundle up. But it's football weather in Pittsburgh, and this is your last one. So come on out, celebrate the seniors, as we've talked about. And, thanks again for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And we'll talk to you live tomorrow night after the game, and then we'll be back Monday morning for another Morning Pitt right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.